Hey, everybody. I hope it's been a fruitful starting week of practice. Before we get into it this week, I just wanted to remind everybody that as you're starting to explore what mindfulness looks like in your own experience, and especially in the context of diabetes, there's an amazing resource, which is actually the group that I'm coming from, which is the Diabetes Sangha. So we'll have the website posted again here, but I just encourage you to be able to continue practicing as much as you can, as close to daily as possible, even if it's just a short practice, and adding in a few days a week of sitting with that community can be a wonderful opportunity to do that. Okay, so with all that said, this week we're going to continue to deepen into our investigation of what mindfulness is in your own experience. And to do that, we're going to use the most effective, remarkable technology we humans have available to us, which is our bodies and our ability to sense them. So last week, we defined mindfulness kind of officially as the experience of being both aware of and receptive to whatever your experience is right now. And then we added at the end that part of it is coming back to that awareness and receptivity over and over again. So when you say it like that, it's not that complicated. But of course, anybody who's ever tried this knows that while it's very simple, it's not that easy most of the time. So here's the question: what normally gets in the way of us being aware, receptive, and remembering? Well, I don't know about you, but for me, generally, it's my mind. My thoughts and memories and projections about the future. And then in relation to those thoughts, memories, and projections, my preferences, my liking certain things and disliking other things. That kind of emotional component, which makes the thoughts so much more sticky. So let's just take a moment to do an experiment here to consider the mind in this way. What brings us out of this mindfulness, this awareness and receptivity of your experience right now? So with no instruction, if you feel safe and comfortable for just a 60-second period, close your eyes for a second. Your only instruction is be aware of and receptive to your experience right now. That's all. Aware of and receptive to your experience right now. Aware of, receptive to your experience right now. Just giving this a try. No other instruction. So I don't know about you, but even with having done a fair amount of practice, immediately what starts to happen is, even at a subtle level, my thoughts and preferences start coming out. So all of a sudden I'm thinking about, I don't know if I'm sitting quite right. Oh, that feels kind of weird in my back. Maybe something's wrong. Maybe I should fix that and adjust it and change it. That's maybe aware of, but not quite receptive to. And then all of the things that I'm not aware of because I'm occupied with these little small parts of my experience. So I'm not able to fully open up and be aware. And then I quickly start to forget, to not remember what I'm even doing. And all of these because we have these thoughts, let's say, and they get more sticky with our feelings, with our preferences. So we've identified something important here. While we normally think thoughts are actually the problem, it's not the thoughts themselves that are the problem. It's our relationship to them that causes us trouble and fogs up our minds. And how can we tell what our relationship is to thoughts? Well, that part is actually pretty simple, by how they make us feel. We know what we prefer by how we feel. Enter the body, this amazing technology we have. So sensing our bodies is our best shot at learning how we really feel about different things. And not feel in some extra special spiritual way, but feel just in a sense of, how do you feel about vanilla ice cream versus chocolate? I have an imagination that probably most of you will prefer one or the other. Maybe some of you are more disciplined than I am in your care and management of diabetes, and you don't have that because it throws your blood sugars off. Me, I often go for the ice cream anyways. Sometimes I pay the price. Point being, even me saying all of those things, you have a sense of how you feel, bringing up desserts and sweets. Even just that, it might bring up some fears in us, some stress in us. We might get excited also. Certain kinds of things that we really like. So all of these come immediately. And how do we know how we feel about them? Well, we sense them from head to toe. Most of the time, we don't even know that we're sensing them. But we can try this for a second. How do you feel when you're angry? Imagine this for just a second. You can close your eyes if it's helpful. So when I'm angry, I feel a lot of heat and warmth and kind of a rising feeling going up my kind of heart and throat. And I feel a lot of tenseness in my shoulders and my hands. These are classic anger feelings. I think a lot of people probably feel that way with anger. Some people might feel other feelings. Or let's take an example of what's it like to be sad. So if I close my eyes and imagine being sad for a moment, I feel a sort of weakness and a sinking feeling. Everything gets a little more quiet. If I really drop into it, I might even feel some kind of visceral feeling around my eyes, as if I might start welling up with tears or something. Or let's go on the more positive end, since we've been so down and dreary. What about when you're excited? How do you know you're excited? Imagine this for a second. Something wonderful has happened. Something that you're really looking forward to. So again, I feel a rising feeling, but it's almost kind of tingling. It's not tense, it's exciting. And it goes up to my head. So different feeling all the way around. And you might have different feelings that I just described. Each of us has our own experience of these different emotions. But how can we tell them apart? We tell them apart based on what's going on in our body. But sensing our body is about more than just learning what our relationship is, how we feel about these thoughts, and how we feel about the whole world. It's also about how we come to terms with these feelings, these relationships. So the most magical thing starts to happen when we just remain aware of what's happening in a receptive way. The feelings start to change. So we'll talk more about some of those changes and change in general next week. That'll be the focus. But this week, let's just focus as much as we can on being honest and as detailed as possible about what those feelings actually are, because that's always going to be the first step that we're going to keep coming back to. What am I really feeling right now? Where am I feeling it? How does it feel? A very important first step for this mindfulness process. So you may naturally be wondering at this point, what does this all have to do with my life with diabetes? And that's a very reasonable question because I haven't talked about it at all yet. So let's take one of my favorite examples, and favorite I say probably because it's a feeling and relationship to diabetes that I have a lot of work to do on. So this example is rage bolusing. So many of you probably know the term, but you'll understand it in a second if you don't yet. So what happens when I or we or whoever rage boluses? Well, step one is usually a sustained high blood sugar. So I've tried smaller, more measured, reasonable, calculated boluses a couple of times, maybe even at this point, but the steady march up of the blood sugar just continues. My blood sugar is high, so my heart is naturally pounding anyways. I continue to get more and more uncomfortable physically. I'm more dehydrated mentally. I become more and more foggy. And all of this, I'm getting more and more frustrated over time because I'm tired of it. I don't want to deal with this. I've been living with diabetes for 20 years. Why can't I just figure this out already? So at some point, something snaps and I make the move, the rage bolus move. A large, uncalled for bolus to make something change, anything. So for me, since I have Afrezza, I'll take way more Afrezza than I need to take. And next thing you know, my blood sugar or anyone's blood sugar is plummeting way more than I wanted or needed. And we have the beginning of a blood sugar roller coaster. Not fun for the next few hours to come. So in this case, the relationship between my thoughts about the impact on my day and my health and my past history with high blood sugars and the lack of insulin response, and I take such good care of myself, why is this happening to me? All of these things, and my spiraling feelings of frustration about the whole situation becomes so sticky. It becomes stronger and stronger. The feeling actually wells up because I'm not looking at it. I'm just allowing it to accumulate. I'm kind of avoiding it a little bit, in fact, because it's uncomfortable. Feelings get stronger and stronger until it's too overwhelming for my kind of baser instincts, kind of my smaller mind, to not react to. And there you have a rage bolus. Quite simple. It happened at some point, has certainly happened to probably everybody watching. What happens in this example if I apply mindfulness of the body? Well, it's certainly not magic. My blood sugar doesn't become perfect all of a sudden, for sure. But if through lucky timing, or more likely if from having more and more practice over time to keep coming back to being aware of and receptive to the present moment, if I have practice doing this, I might think at some point to pause when I start to feel more and more uncomfortable. That uncomfortable is kind of like a meditation bell to me. It tells me to come back to something that's going on here. So I notice this discomfort of the high blood sugars, perhaps. Or perhaps I notice the discomfort of my rising anger. And as soon as I notice it, they start to lose some of their power over me. They don't go away, and they're not all of a sudden replaced by some joyous feeling of happiness, certainly, but they lose their ability to make decisions about my blood sugar and my care for me. And as we all know, those feelings aren't good decision makers, but they'll do it if we don't attend to them. We always say, and many people have heard of this kind of term in the book, which is brilliant, of thinking like a pancreas. But so often we are so stuck thinking and stewing on our own feelings, we don't know how to set those things aside yet so that we can think more like a pancreas. So step one of thinking like a pancreas is actually learning how to set aside our human minds so we can take up a pancreas mind. What would my pancreas do? Rather than trying to take up a pancreas mind when we're jumbled up in our emotions. Another example might be, you can imagine it's kind of like being a child at night who's afraid of something in the dark. So being afraid, their mind becomes hypervigilant, and it starts attending to every little sound, maybe a creak of the closet door or the bed. And this child gets more and more scared, so at a certain point, they hide under the covers. And under the covers, while at first it seems safer, it disconnects this child even further from anything outside of the covers. So all of a sudden, everything is even more terrifying on the outside. And then we're paralyzed under the covers, reacting and putting ourselves in a deeper and deeper hole where there's only one option to get out of that hole, which is to get out of the covers and face what's scary and turn on the lights. So the earlier the child does this, turns the light on, the easier it actually becomes to come out of the fear. It's much harder once you're already under the covers and paralyzed to pull them off and turn the light on. But at any point, with enough courage and resolve, we can turn the light on. And in this case, the light is the light of our own awareness, the light of our mindfulness. And the most important awareness that we can have is awareness of our body sensations. And what are the monsters in this case? What are the things we're scared of, hiding from? For the most part, they're actually our thoughts and feelings that make us uncomfortable. That so many of us, as people living with diabetes, share in our diabetes lives. And you'll find so many of your fears outside your diabetes life are shared by so many humans. We think they're so personal, But so many of the things that paralyze us are actually shared human experiences. So the earlier we turn our awareness to them and shine this light on them, the quicker we realize they're not such scary, formidable monsters. They're just stacked on top of each other, so they seem big. And they're all silly little small things that can kind of dissolve away. They're not all unreasonable, but they don't need to have that reaction from us. So you can imagine this for any and all situations, feelings, and thoughts that cause discomfort in our lives, both in and out of diabetes. And I encourage you now, as this video is ending, to note one or two of the places in your life that are consistently uncomfortable like that for you, that either spiral emotionally for you or where you're not happy about the way that you react to them. So use that as your place of work. Do your best to keep up a daily practice. And when this thing comes up, that way you'll be more ready to use your awareness of your body to investigate it, to shine the light of awareness on this supposedly big, bad, scary monster. So I've said a lot at this point. I think we'll stop there for the session. I had so much I wanted to say, but that'll be good for now. I will say one last thing, though. As you continue to practice and explore mindfulness in these ways that we're talking about, and perhaps make it to a few Diabetes Sangha sessions this week or next week or in the weeks to come, and you could also be using other guided meditations. As you're doing all of these things, explore the ways that your actual sitting, your physical posture, the way that you're situated when you're practicing, explore the way that that might be impacting your experience. So there will be some resources on this week for you to investigate a little bit further. Oh, what are some different ways that I can sit to help me have a more stable experience where I can truly practice mindfulness, practice being aware of and receptive to and remembering. Okay. I hope it's a great week of practice ahead. As always, feel free to reach out. Please attend some sits this week. If not, explore on your own some of these practices that we're talking about. And we'll also have a practice on this week for you to be able to begin to explore some of these topics that you can take through the rest of your week. Take care.